Well, that was one heck of a roller coaster of a game, and unfortunately, it's kind of like when we used to play Roller Coaster Tycoon as kids, and you just didn't quite finish the coaster, and you put people on it anyway. We all flew off at the end as DC United failed, unfortunately, to get the 3 points tonight, or really anything in Foxborough. But man, that hurts, right? I mean, other results mostly went the Black and Red's way tonight, with the exception of, I guess the Chicago game yesterday. You know, they could have dropped more points, and they ended up drawing. But they're still very much in this, and we're going to talk through all the playoff permutations here in just a few minutes as we welcome you in live to Tried and True, the DC United Postgame podcast presented by Heineken. I'm John Lee, joined this week by Sam Kastner and Joshua Morgan. Michael Black's on hiatus this week, so we got the three of us. And Sam, how you holding up?
Do you want to turn my correct mic on?
I tried.
But, I mean, John's back on the board this week
Oh,
and
man.
just immediately mutes me. I don't know.
It's in preparation for the Leeds-Leicester game tomorrow.
Oh, wow. I wish that this were a game that I could have just been really excited about the effort that we put in, right? Because, it was unfortunate that we went down. We'll definitely talk in detail about that happening, us blowing that 2-goal lead, but I felt like we fought back. This is a game I wish we could have been oh, but we played pretty decently and on to the next, and we just don't have that luxury, and I think that's
there's
the
only
hardest
one
part for me
next
right
game,
now.
right?
Yeah, it's I don't know, this almost any other season would have been what a bummer, but what a game. Let's all go to the bar, and then we'll just look forward to the next one. But now it's just, it was so do or die, and we'll get into the playoff implications because I think we can still maybe squeak our way in, but
we can. We're not
help.
eliminated. And the crazy thing, if Michael were here, we'd be normally he would be saying, good things happen when you score. And I think the most heartbreaking part tonight is, this is the first game all season, game 22, where DC United scored 3 goals, and yet they conceded 4. And look, back line was, I don't know, double-digit choice back line when you look at this roster.
Which we'll get into, but I think both of you at points during the game when there were defensive errors were kind of how bad is Sjoberg that he's still not getting the shout right now?
It's inexplicable to me.
Yeah.
Russell Canals put in a great shift in Atlanta in the center back role, and it's not surprising that he got another start there, given the ridiculousness of Briant being suspended and obviously Birnbaum being hurt. Pines had another good game in my opinion, but how does the proper center back not start, right?
Yeah. And I think that Russell had a fine game if you take out his 2 errors. Obviously those were very glaring, but I think you have to keep in mind that he's out of his position. And I think he had some really important tackles. Just those 2 were such major errors that it's hard to cut him any slack right now. But I do just want to remember that this is not his position.
It's tough, and people are talking about where do we need to improve next year, and we have 3 decent center backs. I think Pines is now a decent center back in this league. Birnbaum is still there. Briant is getting older. We probably need to find someone to replace him, but I would love to see Pines and Birnbaum starting next season.
Yeah.
Do we bring someone up that's going to be a backup for them? I don't know how that works, and I think we owe Pines a start, and Birnbaum's given us so much for so many years. I don't think he's out to pasture yet. I'm
at the point now, and I know this is such a cop-out, but when I hear that question of where do we need to improve, health is where we need to improve, because I think this team at full strength has a number of pieces. I tried probably unsuccessfully to make that argument a couple months ago when Olsen was still here and the style we were playing wasn't really conducive, but the way Ashton's got these guys playing over the past 4 games, they still have the same injury problems, right? The roster's still not full.
Yeah. And
yet they're just such a different team. Even attacking wise tonight, we've talked at nauseum about the struggles at striker, and God, Ola Kamara is just so bad. There's no way around it at this point. But having a guy like Paul out there, I think that would have been huge tonight. Gressel obviously was unavailable. Congratulations to him and his wife on the birth of their daughter. that sucked though, not having him available, right? I mean, like, right decision, not saying anything negative about him not being available. His heart was in the right place, but man, it would have been nice to have him out there tonight too. And it's tough. And the other thing is, Kevin Paredes did not have a good game tonight,
No.
but another guy we're asking to play out of position, and I think Kevin has a better game if you've got two center backs in there that are actual center backs that can help cover for some of his mistakes, right? So I think him and Russ sticking out to me as the weak spots on this team tonight. It's like, well, yeah, neither of them was playing in the right position. It's just a product of injuries and that ridiculous yellow card situation.
Which
with
again,
with Brown. Go ahead.
No, again, I wish we were at a point in the season when we could like just brush those things off and feel happy that they put in the work that they did and just think on to the next. And it's, I mean,
yeah, you guys went through that full evolution while I was still setting some stuff up. But that was a fantastic game of soccer if you don't, put your team in the way or think about the playoff implications. It was beautiful. We saw some really great goals, some really good build-up from I would say DC United had the better build-up in their goals, but it's tough. The injuries, the only time Pines has really played or Paredes has played that left back position is when we were running three in the back.
That's right.
Which we did not have tonight. And you're asking him pretty different things there. You're asking him to run that side of the wing with three in the back. But do we have a...
All right. We'll go ahead and get started.
It looks like we'll send it real quick live to Chad Ashton, who's at the podium and ready to talk.
Obviously, you had a makeshift back line there because of all the personnel issues. But that said, why do you think you had so many problems trying to stop the revolution in the second half?
I mean, number one, they've got some real quality players, but I think you hit the nail on the head. It's difficult when you have guys who haven't played together a lot, guys playing, a little bit out of position. But again, they have some quality guys. When you're bringing Bao off the bench, like he changes them completely. They have some real attacking pieces, and we were just under it a lot. But the minutes, the games, they add up, and still the guys scratched and clawed and did everything they could. But tonight it wasn't enough, but I'm, again, super proud of the group. It's the spirit and the fight, and it's tough to not walk away with something, but super proud of the group.
We'll go back to Steve. Go ahead, Steve.
Chad, where do you see your chances now? Obviously, it's a clogged, a congested race for the last two slots, but you're going to need some help.
Sure.
How do you look at it?
Yeah, that's how we look at it. We got to go take care of our business and then hope we get some help. So it's pretty simple for us. We need to win the game and then hope things go our way. But just control what we can control and go out there and get the full 3 points against Montreal and see what happens.
We'll go to Jason Anderson. Jason, go ahead.
Chad, thanks for speaking with us. You got 2 assists out of Edison tonight, 1 from each wing. When he plays in the midfield, are these maybe the kind of chances you're looking for him to generate on a regular basis? Yeah,
he's a creative player. He can see a lot of things. I think, again, the more time he gets with the group, the more time he gets sharpness in, you're going to see him manufacture points in different ways. But he's a great player, and he's gonna help this team a lot.
We'll go to Alonzo. Alonzo, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. I know tough loss. Just a follow-up from the last question when they talk about Ason Flores. What was the purpose or the intention? I'm sorry to put Ason Flores close to Jordi Reina. It was just since they're both Peruvian, they play in the national team as well. Thank you.
They're just good players. We were hoping the first half that we could get on the ball a lot, trying to overwhelm them a little bit in the midfield. And I thought at times we did it. I thought at times we had them confused. Especially the first goal was a good indication of that. But they're both good players. They're naturally gonna kind of gravitate towards each other with having played together and knowing each other. But it's a good relationship, and hopefully we can continue to work on progressing that even further.
Thanks, Chad. There's no more questions. Appreciate your time.
Well, it's a quick one tonight there on the press conference. Sam, what mic
All
are
right,
you
folks.
on?
We'll have Griffin Yao coming up.
5 or
soon.
7?
Go
I
ahead,
don't even
raise
know
your
anymore.
hand.
You're on 7. All right.
Griffin. Thanks.
It down a man. You know, I'm a little thrown here on the board. That's DC United's interim head coach Chad Ashton, who, you know, what he said is spot on though. I mean, DC United unfortunately are not in a win-in situation, but all they can do is win. They have to win next weekend, and the rest will or won't work itself out. But if they lose, they're out. I don't think there's any way forward if they lose next weekend.
Because I think we're already out, and it really helps that we're playing Montreal, who is so close, and basically also, you know, if they don't win, they're also out. But just the way it lines up, like, it's so tight that all those points matter. And everyone's got to be, you know, watching it open on Wednesday to see what Chicago does. But I think even if Chicago wins midweek, there are still some chances for us to sneak in there.
Yeah, the
It'll
math
be
gets
razor thin.
all sorts of weird. I think so if that game goes on, then and by the way, it might not. Minnesota United's game today, I believe, was canceled due to a number of COVID-19 positives. That's who Chicago has midweek. And so it's a very real possibility that game does not get played, and then we'd revert to points per game, which we'll have to do some math here because it doesn't appear to be in the standings I'm looking at on Google. So we'll switch that over and we'll get you that answer. But you're right. If that game, if Chicago wins, they go to 24, which puts them, DC United's max available points now is 24 on the season, which is really kind of.
But I think we would hop Montreal, right? Because they lost.
We
tonight.
would, yeah. So Montreal's on 23. So if we win, we will definitely finish above Montreal because we play Montreal.
Yeah,
next week.
and then Chicago, I think, plays Cincy. Am I correct?
No, Chicago's got NYCFC away.
Who plays
weekend.
Cincy?
Miami has the dreaded home game against Cincinnati, and then
Atlanta plays Columbus.
That's right. Yep. So
it could all go our favor.
Oh man,
it could.
Yeah, it could be a lot worse going into this last week, right? And it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You know, so just the fact that we're sitting here talking and this loss tonight is frustrating, but it's hard to get really down on just knowing the state of health on this team and whatnot. But the fact that we're going into decision day and could make the playoffs.
We have a decision to be made.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And one other note I want to make is the Eastern Conference would get out completely unscathed somehow this crazy year if that Chicago game goes on midweek. That would mean everyone in the Eastern Conference has played all of their games, which is nothing short of miraculous,
Shocking.
especially when you look at the Western Conference, which has been ravaged.
Yeah, it hurts, but I'm starting to wonder: did we make the decision too late to move on with our coaching position? We've kind of seen the revival in the past few days, and I know we're in between interviews, but someone said in the chat we dug ourselves too big of a hole if we had played even half the way we've been playing the past few games. As far as being industrial and attack and scoring goals, maybe we would be safely above this line.
Which is interesting to me, and we talked a lot about this both in our recent shows and just kind of offline about how we weren't really sure what DC United was playing for because they put off the coaching decision until so late. If they had made that decision even a month earlier, right, that's like 4 or 5 games in which you have to work with a little bit. And obviously, if you bring in a new coach, you're assuming that they're going to have a little bit.
Thanks for your patience.
You're assuming that they're going to have a little bit of just a couple games to really get under the belt, get the team used to them. You can't really expect results in that time. So the fact that like Chad's come in and he had, I think it was a loss, a tie, and then he went on a winning streak until tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, that's phenomenal and probably the best we could have ever expected to come out of making that coaching change so late into the season. So it's just shocking to me that DC United didn't look at it and say, if we make this decision a couple games earlier, because I really don't think it came down to Ben's final games to make that decision. So had they pulled the trigger a little bit earlier, I think we would absolutely be in a much different position.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure they made the decision in an effort to save this season. I think it was just a decision that was long overdue and happened when it happened. I
It's interesting to me then that it happened this season.
Yeah, well, yeah, every DC United fan's been asking that for most of the decade. But it's just happenstance that it's Chad Ashton has come in and the team has been playing better. And I don't even know if it's his tactics or anything. Go ahead.
By this season, I meant like during the season. If DC United wasn't, like if the front office wasn't hoping that we would be able to make the playoff run, and again, that's leaving it until so late, then like, why not just keep Ben throughout the end, right? Like, what are you hoping to then gain?
I think, I mean, this was my argument at the time, right? And I was one of the last people to say Olsen should go, but I think that's exactly it. It's like, okay, if you've made the conscious decision that at the end of the season you're going to get rid of this guy and there's enough runway left, then get rid of him mid-season and see if you can't get a spark.
Or even like 2/3 of the season in, right?
Yeah.
Like, it just happened so late.
It did, and I mean, what's interesting to me, and I want to save some of what I'm going to say for whether it's, hopefully it's not next week, but at some point we'll do a show after the season, and I want to look back kind of through the season and just talk about some of the what ifs, right? Because it's been crazy. But
John wants to get really drunk one night and relive the catastrophe that has been 2020 for DC United.
I'm truly still so hung up on this Columbus game last weekend, where obviously we got the 3 points, which was huge, but I retweeted it from the podcast account during Chad Ashton's press conference there, but Pablo Maurer put together a great thread on that yellow card that was issued to Frederick Briand last weekend, and I got to tell you, Pablo's a great journalist, but he's not a big DC United fan, and for him to come in with that like very clear, like, this is not a yellow card kind of look, and when I look at a guy like him, he's pretty objective, not as emotional as we all are.
Yeah.
I don't think we lose tonight if we have a proper center back out there alongside
completely
Pines, right?
Agree.
One could argue we easily win, but we definitely don't come away empty-handed. And
I mean, you just assume that Fred Briand isn't going to have any like goal errors in which he's been pretty standard. There've definitely been plays that he has not been great leading into, but he doesn't give up the PK and he doesn't score an own goal, right? So just looking at it from that way, we do win this game. That's 2 goals.
And I think looking at it through the lens, like we were talking about, of like, should they just have kept Ben around for the season? Like, had they kept Ben around for the whole season and we went on the same trajectory, right? Like we started winning these games and everything was normal. My reaction tonight would have been, you know what? You can't leave it up to that one bad call that sets your season up for failure. There were plenty of times throughout the season where they should have got more points. They should have done better, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And all that still holds true. But now that we're in the Ashton era, they made the change. We're playing so much different and so much better. To me, that just shines so much brighter of like, come on, like that actually does make more of an impact when you've made the tactical changes and are playing differently.
I'm so happy you said that, because it's absolutely a mentality shift, right? And like, if you can compare it to the EPL and when they get down to decision day and all the talk about it is like, well, this one call that this ref made in this one game is why the team's being relegated. And it's like, that's not true. They had all season to figure it out. Yeah. So I'm so glad that you put it in that perspective of like, we really have had all season to figure it out, but through the lens of a DC United fan in the shift of when it switched from Ben Olsen to Chad Ashton, like, obviously, yes, the team should have done better the entire rest of the season, but like, that really is such a defining moment that is leading into these last couple of games, which is probably giving us a little bit more grace than Joshua was about to give. But I love that you put it in that perspective.
I think Ben Olsen puts away a 2-0 win away in the rain at the Revs.
So I would agree on the surface, but do you think he does it with the available players we had tonight? Because I don't know that they could have gotten a whole lot more defensive. You could have put Schoberg.
You had a point there.
That's a coin toss, apparently.
But like, not a coin toss. He's just on
apparently
the bench.
So this is what we talked about all
toss.
year: is that the Benny Ball grit is so annoying and it's not fun to watch because you don't score goals. But you also you don't concede 4 times when you're up 2 goals.
I don't think you go up 2 goals though, and that's what we saw all season.
Right?
If you want to say at halftime, if we had decided to make Ben Olsen the coach again, like maybe we win that game. But like, it doesn't work.
Yeah, no.
Team mentalities don't work to like bunker once you go up.
It's a really interesting point, and I think face value, you're spot on, right? Like we would have bunkered, we would have made it work, we would have grinded out. I just think tonight they didn't have the personnel to do that. And it's still not great to give up 4. It's never great to give up 4. But that back line was...
Yes,
God.
but you also don't have the composure going forward. And you're right. I was like one of the last ones to say Olsen out, right? But like just thinking about that first goal, like the build up to it and the way Eddie Flores sat on that ball and like waited. He didn't just like whip the cross in and hope. He literally went to take the cross, lifted his head, went, oh, nope. He did a little bit of a fake. He like rolled the ball out in front of him and he waited for like the team to get in a position where we could make the run, which is like not what we would have seen with Ben Olsen, right? Like in that situation, you're just thinking like
tonight.
That would be a completely different story. Yeah, but I mean, you don't see that with Ben Olsen's team. His was very much like just pressure and try to shove it down their throats.
Yeah, knock some balls around.
But when you're countering, it's just like go, 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 and don't even wait for people around you. Just try to counter and get your shot off on goal, which was not working for this team.
I liked what I saw from Reyna. And from Eddie there, and the build up for that goal. Liked what I saw from Rivas today. I tweeted it out in response to our friend Kevin's tweet about the turn and the shot. I don't think we've seen that from a DC United striker all year.
His body was facing the sideline when he like took that shot and it went in the goal.
I mean,
Crazy.
That's what a number 9 does. They play with their back to goal and then they adjust.
He didn't even get the full turn though. I mean, it was really pretty to watch.
Yeah, it was great. Man, what we were talking about?
A little bit of everything, I think.
Does Ben Olsen put this way? It looks like we got a press conference.
We're going to get bailed out here. It looks like Griffin Yao is available, and we'll send it over to him now live.
All right, folks, we'll go ahead and get started. Reminder to raise your hand. We'll go to Steve Goff first. Steve, go ahead.
Hey, Griffin, thanks for your time. How disappointing is this to you guys, being in a position for a while it looked like you could get 3 points, and then it looked like you could come away with a point at the end? What's the sense around the team right now?
I mean, I think the sense just kind of as a basis is, it's never good to lose. So we're all disappointed on that aspect, but you can't get too down because obviously we've still got next Sunday coming up. And if we get the job done then, if we get the job done, then we'll have a pretty good chance. So I think we just need to put all focuses towards that and keep our heads high, really.
Thanks, Griff. We'll go to Jason Anderson. Jason, go ahead. Jason, you there? All right, seems like Jason's having some audio issues. We'll come back to him. We'll go to Mauricio. Mauricio, go ahead.
Hey, Griffin. Congratulations on your second goal with DC United on this season. How did you see the overall performance with the team being shorthanded in a certain way because some key players didn't play today?
Yeah, obviously we're definitely big time missing Gressel and missing some of the other guys that we haven't had, all season really, Paul. And that's been the type of season that we've had. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of, unpredictables. So I think we're doing a really good job grinding through it and, just pushing forward. That's all we really can do.
Thanks, Griff. I'm going to pause for about 5 seconds, see if anyone else has a question. Looks like Jason's hand's back up. Jason, go ahead.
Let's try this again. Thanks, Griffin, for taking the time. Could you take us through the goal? I know you won the foul and then you got free to finish your goal off. What exactly were you seeing on the whole play?
I mean, to start off, I'm kind of in the box on those type of plays for that exact reason, just to, pick up any second balls, any ball that might pop out. So I was positioned in a fairly good spot. I mean, it was pretty lucky that the ball fell right in front of me, to be honest. But I mean, when the ball falls like that at that area in the goal, I mean, there's no way I'm doing anything but finishing it. So.
Awesome, Griff. No more questions, buddy. Thanks for the time.
Yep, for sure.
That's DC United's Griffin Yao joining us tonight during the media availability session, and it's a fascinating time here. I'm kind of digging in into a Twitter hole here, trying to really break down the playoff situation. And
well, before you get into that, can I just say that I love that they put Griffin on? We were chatting about it. just it says a lot about his maturity that they're going to put him on
Yeah.
in a loss that means this much to the team, right? But also I love him like being super casual about that goal, and he was trying to be really humble.
That's my job,
you
man.
could tell he was super excited. I love hearing it from him. And it, regardless of what happens this season, right? It's like so exciting to look into the future because you gotta assume that the kids are still going to be with DC United, at least for next season, and it's just going to be so fun to watch when all the other pieces fall into place.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that, Sam. I mean, we talked a little bit during the game, right? This team could, in theory, someday, hopefully next season, roll out like a 4-3-3 where the three in the midfield are all the kids, and it's just, I mean, it's crazy.
Amazing.
To think.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, obviously the roster needs some reconstruction in the offseason, and we'll beat that horse to death in a few weeks, or hopefully a few months if we play our cards right. But
I think more than additions, the new coach has to have a plan for at least Nyman, but all three of those players have a plan for how you want them to develop and where you see them going forward, because they're just huge assets for the club right now. I mean, we saw Brendan Aronson just go for $5 million. And he changed the way Philadelphia played this year. If we have three of those guys coming up right now, DC United could run amok in MLS.
Which I will say I don't see happening this offseason. Like, I could see them being sold
for
that amount, especially. I could see one or two of them being sold for a lot less. And then I would say it's probably just kind of up to them and like where they want to see their beginning part of their career progress. But I would love to see them at DC United and still be able to flourish. And then I think that they could probably go for like an Aronson amount depending upon who comes in and how they utilize them.
You have to be like top 4 in the MLS under 22, and Nyman's the only one that cracked the list at 22. So he's got to get a little.
That's
bit
a whole
high.
different conversation. That was a little bit shocking.
I think it's pretty fair. There's some really good young talent in this league, and we haven't seen them play game in, game out. And
You
that's
also have to look
really
at the pieces around them though and how they're being set up.
That's true.
They're nowhere near Diego Rossi yet. Well, they'll get there, I think, once the team's set up. But yeah, and that's why I want the coach to come in with a plan for those guys.
Yeah,
well, and one nice thing to think next year, I mean, God willing, we go back to a 34-game season, and we go back to an Open Cup, right? And so there's more opportunities for these guys to play. Oh, and fans in the stands would be my top ask out of those three, right? But I mean, I think that's not me relegating the three of them to like, bench and Open Cup games. Not at all. I think all three of them will challenge for minutes, and as they should. But you what they need to do is continue to bring in, and they might not even have to bring in anybody. They could just get healthy. But competition for these guys, right? I mean, we've talked before that DC United and every team in the world is at its best when it's got competition at all the spots. And one of the best ways to kind of help that competition is more games. And so with Open Cup and with, but that requires everybody to stay healthy, right?
You're right. I wonder if we'd see a little bit of movement between the three of them and Loudon. And I don't mean to go into that whole conversation right now. We obviously had a game tonight, and we're still within a season. That's definitely something we can touch on postseason. But I did want to bring it up while we're talking about it. That's the other route that these three could go, and it wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, and talking about it, it kind of hurts me because I do think Pines has done a good job. I think he's been one of the best players for DC United in multiple matches. But if we could bring in a starting center back, I would be fine with him behind Birnbaum for some games. Those guys splitting time, or
do you just like not bring back Fred in this scenario? Or
I think you leave Fred and
I'm not necessarily saying that you shouldn't. I mean, Fred is at the end of his career. I think we all really like him, so I would hate to.
He's not playing like he's at the end of his career either.
Right, that's true.
As a DC United fan who has seen DC United sign many people at the ends of their career, and you could very clearly tell.
Talking about Sebastian Letou in particular?
Specifically, yes. I mean, he wasn't the only one. He specifically, yes, I had a large issue with. But I think that Fred, like, he's not the best player on the team like he possibly was last season, but he's also not the worst, right? So I would not be mad with like signing him again next season if it were just to be kind of like Steven, you keep Donovan, you maybe bring in another center back. I wouldn't be super mad with like keeping Frederick just because now I'm scarred and I just think everyone's gonna get injured.
I don't know. Roster hits go up as players age. I don't think Brianna is cheap anymore. We'd have to play with that and see how it works. There's very limited space on teams. I don't know if we can afford a 36-year-old center back.
I think a lot of it just comes down to who's available and who would you bring in, and can you bring somebody else in, or is it the Donovan and Steven show with Fred in relief?
As long as it's not Canals, I'm good.
Yeah. Oh man. We're live here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken, and I think we owe it to the team to kind of go back and just talk about this game very briefly, because at least on the offensive side of the ball, this is one of their best performances of the season, if not just from the 3 goals that they scored. And it started early, and it was in quick succession. The 22nd minute was the goal, Sam, that you just broke down. Yamil Assad was the one to ultimately put it away, but just outstanding build-up play by Flores and Reyna, who were both credited for the assist. Oh, wow. That's the kind of team goal I like to see, and that's the second week in a row with just a brilliant team goal that we've been thrilled about.
It was so calm. It looked like we knew what we were doing. Like, I think I said that's the type of goal that for the whole season we've seen scored on us.
For sure.
Right? Like, you had the entire team build up. You had more than one person rushing into the box, and you just had this calm composure to say, that's not what I'm looking for. Okay, now that's what I'm looking for. And you had Assad who said, I'm going to collect this ball and I'm going to put a shot on goal, right?
Yeah.
Like, just overall, it was not what we have been used to seeing go our way this season. And it was just beautiful to watch.
And just 4 minutes later, Griffin Yao follows up to put the Black and Red up 2-0. And I think a lot of us were like, man, we're on easy street here.
You know, when you get a ball like that, I love it. I love seeing him still get those goals.
Yeah, now he's got 2 for the year now, right? And so he is in that runner-up spot.
Yeah.
But Yamil bumped up to tie Ola, so
yeah.
Now there's multiple people on 3. And then,
guys, if I net a Hattie on Sunday, I'm tied for the Golden Boot. It wasn't without heartbreak before the end of the half, though, for the Black and Red. Buxa scored just 4 minutes after that in the 30th minute, and
in the PK.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm struggling a bit. I don't know that it was definitely not a PK, but the foul 100% started well outside the box, and I mean ultimately he went down after Russ fell and then Buxa tripped over him, or it might not have been Buxa actually there. Buxa took the PK, but I don't know. I was a little surprised we didn't go to VAR for a little longer.
It's a foul Russell gets away with in the middle of the field. It might not even be a foul in the middle of the field. Towards in the box, it's like, But, yeah, I feel pretty hard done by with that.
Which I hate. It should just, if it's a foul, it's a foul. It doesn't matter where on
what
the field,
a PK
right?
save from Bill too.
Yeah. Oh
man. Yeah, it's brutal.
He was rightfully pretty upset with the team, and I think we had talked about maybe did someone in from New England encroach? But DC United was also pretty much encroaching, and the fact that we were encroaching and also couldn't help to save that rebound. I mean that it just sucks. You hate to see it.
Yeah, and then Russell's struggles continued just after halftime, 54th minute, the own goal, and I mean, he didn't need to touch it
at all. He could have just let it go. No one from New England was running in, which sucks.
Briant doesn't make that mistake. To you guys' point,
no, he doesn't, and
neither
obviously
does
Steven doesn't,
yeah.
right? I don't know. I mean, is that an instinctual reaction to someone who's typically not that close to the goalkeeper there?
Yeah.
Right? He's
used
at the top of the box. That's a pretty safe touch to take.
He's not used to whether or not there's a backside runner, and he wasn't sure, and so he made a play on it, and he shouldn't have.
Because if he hadn't made a play and there had been a backside runner, right, we would have been like, why do you not put anything on that ball? We would have been super upset with him regardless. That's just a little bit of communication, and kind of you're aware of your surroundings a little bit differently as a center back than you are as a center midfielder. So it just sucks. There definitely should have been a lot more communication happening on that. Any type of touch to just kind of send it out. I think about throwback to Bobby Boswell. He used to have crazy heart-stopping touches all the time that would kind of go towards our goal, but they somehow always hit the post or went wide or whatever. And I just think that's the difference between someone who is a veteran and who's trained their whole life to play center back and someone who you're just kind of sticking in there.
The DC United jury is out, and that foul happened outside the box. Should not have been a PK. I think we have 4 here, which is enough to pass it.
To overturn officially with MLS.
We'll get pro on the horn here. They like me, so I'm sure they'll answer when I call. But one of the things that one of my buddies texted me during the game and was like, "Is VAR broke tonight?" And that wasn't necessarily just a shout at like DC United's not getting the calls, but I picked it up too. We were seeing the assistant refs putting their flags up very early for offsides calls, which typically under VAR rules you wait, you let the play kind of play out for the most part. And then obviously it was DC United's third goal. Where they went real quick to the ear,
which is pretty nicely into our lineup of breaking down the game.
Yeah.
You guys both freaked out, and I was like, I don't know, like Donovan might have had that foul, like let's wait, and John, you even said like modern soccer is having to wait until the ball is kicked off. You hear the whistle and you see the ball go, and then we all like stood up and cheered. Yeah, but you're right. That I think that was a foul, and it didn't affect the goal, right? It would have gone in either way.
Yeah.
Whoever Pines fouled would not have been able to make a play on the ball just from where he was in the box. But also, that was totally a foul. So.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm so happy that goal stood, if not for the fact that Rivas had a world-class touch.
Oh my goodness!
To settle that ball, and then the turn was outstanding as well. I think I remarked live like, I don't see that regularly in European games I watch. I mean, and that's not me saying Rivas should play in Europe at all, but that was a quality play by him and a well-deserved goal, so I was glad to see it stand.
Hey, you guys know, look, this is just straight factual. I think he's above Kamara on the depth chart now. He's shown more glimpses. Actually, it's not even glimpses for him. Kamara's gotten all the play time, and he's shown nothing. And Rivas has been out there, and he's produced at least a chance a game, I think.
We didn't see a replay of that chance. I think it was in the first half, and it was like I would have liked to have seen it again from another angle to see how close Kamara was, but like my live reaction was, you got to get a foot on that. Like, even if you can't put it on frame, like how do you not touch it?
Yeah, ball comes across the face of the goal. And Kamara's back post, and I thought, look, I've seen highlight reels of him finishing that every time. So that is his ball. I don't know. Man's must be in his confidence or something. I don't know. I said during the game, I think he's playing right now to continue to be a professional soccer player, because I think he's lost any chance of being on this roster next year. I would be shocked if he comes back for DCU.
See, the chance, and apologies, I don't remember exactly when it came, but the chance that sticks out to me that absolutely anything could have happened more than what ended up happening was that ball that Sorga received. And he just needed to, like, it was kind of a long ball.
Yeah.
The keeper was way out. He just needed to, like, chip it. I'd rather like the keeper put his hand up and block it, and then we're all frustrated about that. But he took the touch kind of like out to the touch line at the end of the 18 and tried to shoot it from there, and that's never going in. Yeah. It was just so frustrating that he doesn't, even if he wants to take a touch, like take a touch inside, like duke the keeper out a little bit. I'd rather see you try to have that creativity than taking a touch way out left field and nothing is ever going to come of it.
I'd like to see that replay again as well, because you had a very visceral reaction live. Of like,
pissed.
He's got to take a touch.
I was pissed.
I think you made again, I only saw it once, but I think I agree with the point you just made more than I did live of like take a touch inside, because I do think that would have been a heck of an angle to pull off if he tried to chip him right from there.
Or even
I think
send
that's
it on
what he was
the
hoping
ground.
to do.
Literally anything to try to get around the keeper, I would have rather seen than him taking it to the touch line when no one else was around him.
I agree. It wasn't the right, surely wasn't the right decision, that he made. But yeah, it's just I'm struggling to pick apart chances that we should have had in a game when we scored the most goals of the season. Like it's unfortunate, but we came undone on defense tonight, and I really think that was a product of just asking too many guys to play out of position, because here we are in 2020 with half the roster, injured and a bullshit suspension.
Do okay, do you want to continue going down the game, and then I
we should end it. Teal Bunbury in the 84th minute put the final nail in the coffin for New England, and if I remember the goal correctly, it was pretty. We all kind of saw it coming. I'm sorry. That was the third goal.
Yeah, I missed one.
I missed the previous Bunbury goal.
Yeah,
that we all saw coming.
It comes from the right side of the Revs attack again. Paredes was just fish out of water. there, and then they were all man marking. The Revs had more numbers in the box than we had defenders, and so Bunbury, who's an MLS veteran, is gonna make that shot every time.
Yeah, and he's always good for a goal or two against us, it seems like. But in the 84th minute, this one is one I absolutely need to see the replay again, because the DC United feed that we were watching, and I don't know if any of our listeners happen to be watching the New England feed on ESPN Plus and saw it differently, but we were in a replay, and it seemed like it should have been a goal kick to DC United that we didn't see, and they cut out of the replay to New England on a breakaway, and I
basically like 2 seconds before the goal got.
Yeah, and I was like, wait a minute, how do they even have the ball? So I don't know how the change of possession happened, which is
we just saw
tough to break that
Pines
goal down.
chasing from like half field, and
yeah, and at the very end, it's like, oh, it looked like Pines was way out of position, and he was, but I think that's exactly because they were so far ahead. They'd gone up on what should have been a goal kick, and then turnover happened, and then all of a sudden they're racing back, and unfortunately that's what undid.
So here's my
DC
controversial comment is I think that Bill had a pretty good game tonight, and it's hard to say
He did.
against someone who got scored on 4 times, but I would argue that he made some pretty key saves, and I don't know that any of the goals he really could have stopped. Any goal,
I mean, he saved the penalty.
Any goal he could have stopped. Yes,
right?
exactly.
Russell banged in that second goal, unfortunately, and then two good.
Both of them. I just
New England,
don't.
it just hung out to dry.
Yeah, I don't think any keeper really would have been able.
it could have been more. I think we faced 19 shots tonight. Bill did a good job. I don't think that's controversial.
15 saves is crazy. Yeah, I don't know if those are on goal or whatever, but I don't know. It feels controversial to say when you've conceded 4 goals.
Yeah. No, I think the problem was entirely with the back line, and I don't think we ever see that again for DCU. I don't think we ever see that lineup, just because it wasn't supposed to be in the first place, and it will definitely never be again.
Yeah, which we were talking about last pod, I think. We were trying to predict the defensive lineup, and I think this was pretty much what we had predicted. We were trying to listen back and couldn't fact check it exactly, but it was at least pretty close to what this was, and personally I was super excited to see it. I think I was just like so excited about how Russell had just played lights out in a position that wasn't his, and it was probably unfair for me to assume that would have happened every time.
Brian providing us a fact from the ESPN Plus stream said that Bill has 90 wins on the career, 70 are shutouts, which is just, I think, absurd.
It's insane numbers. Wow.
I mean, he's basically carried us to most of our wins, so
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if more than half of those were 1-0. I can think of a few.
That's crazy, because I think with the bias of this season, I'm like, how did we ever have a shutout? I just don't recall that ever happening. But
we used to have them regularly.
Yeah.
And we have another fact check from the text line. It sounds like the New England feed on ESPN Plus did not show the change of possession either. So we'll have to wonder about how that happened, because we don't have video of it anyway.
The world will never know.
maybe the highlights package tomorrow on the website on MLSsoccer.com will have it. But as we kind of revert back to the playoff push here, well, I guess before we do that, any final thoughts on tonight's game?
Just a bummer.
We'll get to the man of the match. I can talk about some great performances that we saw.
Let's do it now. We're talking about the game. Let's do man of the match now.
I'm going to give mine to Edison Flores. I think if we get that Edison Flores every single game, will be a force to be reckoned with. He had 2 assists on the nights, and they were 2 great assists. We've talked about that. Yordi ran on a break. He passes off to his national teammate. And it's just that's just beautiful soccer, right? I want to see that every time. I don't even know what position. Was he on the left? Left, I think, is where the lineup had him. But he's been drifting in and out.
I thought he was drifting more.
Chad mentioned that he was moved around quite a bit last game too, and so that's just a credit to him that he's being flexible like that and making an impact on the game. Assad deserves a shout for a beautiful goal. And man, he brought the fire tonight. But Flores, please continue to do that. Man of the match for me tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I'll honorable mention Flores and same here, right? Like if he continues to play like that, that's going to look like a much, much, much better signing, next year. It was a slow start this year, and I wonder a little bit of like, is it just tough timing again of, Flores finally hitting his stride at this point in the season after Olsen's already been canned, or were they related and Olsen wasn't setting him up for success, and now he's allowed to play much more free because we're not, 11 men behind the ball.
If he wasn't subbed off tonight, and I don't think he was, that would have been his third 90 minutes for DCU. So there's definitely some choppy seas for him coming to DCU.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely impressive building back up the fitness with the broken face too, right? Like, I mean, this guy's out there and putting in shifts here. I'm skimming really quickly. It does not look like he came out tonight, so that would have been another 90-minute shift. But for me, my man of the match, I'm going to give it to Yamil Assad. I thought he put in a great shift. I mean, it was a team goal that he finished off, right? But he had just one heck of it was early again as well, but in the box, defending, getting on the ball, clearance on the ground, it was just the perfect tackle in a very dangerous area.
That? Who was that?
Yeah, and I thought it was Russ for a minute. I think the Clorox from his hair must have come out in the rain or something, but then when we saw the replay, it was Yamil. Look, off mic, I've been dogging Yamil for the Clorox all year, so I guess I'm outed for that. But yeah, no, I'm so happy to see this Yamil Assad, and I'm so excited for next year. Long-time listeners know I dragged him through the mud this year, and he's earned his keep now. He's playing really well.
What great build-up, because Yamil Assad would have been my honorable mention. I think he did have a really good game. I think, he's just been playing so much better, and it's great to see him finding that stride that we wanted him to have coming back from DC. My man of the match, I kind of started the conversation a little bit ago. What?
I'm just waiting for you to say Kevin Paredes.
It's not Kevin Paredes. He did not have a good night. He was maybe not set up.
He was set up to fail. Exactly.
It's not, I don't want to at Kevin, but also he just wasn't the best person on the field. No, I a little bit started the conversation because I just got excited and wanted to talk about it. But I think that Bill really put in a shift tonight. He was kind of not set up to succeed either, kind of in the way that those
not set up to succeed.
In the way just who was in front of him and the way those goals happened. But I think that he had so many key moments, and this could have been a much higher scoring game, but also probably in the wrong direction, and maybe we didn't come back and score the ones that we did. So I'm definitely giving it to Bill tonight.
And backing you up, Sam, the expected goals for New England tonight were 3.41 plus the own goal. So yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And it's, if you can award a goalkeeper man of the match on a night when they ship 4 goals,
crazy.
It was
It's 2020.
It's
2020 when that happens.
But it was probably 6 if Bill wasn't in that tonight, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
honorable mention Rivas. He deserves
Yes.
all of Kamara's minutes going forward. I don't think he's the solution necessarily, but I think he is better than most of the options we have. Sorga keeps trying, and he hustles and presses out there, but Kamara's not getting it done, and Rivas is from now on.
I also think Yao put in a decent shift, not man of the match, but he put in a decent shift. And I think that Nyman also, obviously, he had fewer minutes. But I think that the minutes that he did have were pretty good. He had a couple pretty good tackles, and he was getting in it. So
yeah, for sure.
We love to see it.
It's a loss, but man, it doesn't feel anything like some of the losses we had this season. This was a very.
That's what I mean. I wish I could be excited about this loss, and maybe if we'd had a regular season and it hadn't gone as horribly as it did, we wouldn't be as excited about a loss like this. But it's just, I don't know, exciting that we scored 3 goals, and the goals that they had, it always felt like we were going to come back. Obviously, there were parts of the game where you just felt really deflated, but at no point did I ever think that we were absolutely out of the game. Are we out of the playoffs is a different situation, which I think is the next segment that we're...
Well, and it is. And speaking of being out of the playoffs, FC Cincinnati are officially out of the playoffs with their result tonight against Atlanta. So it is a 5-horse race for the final 2 playoff spots in the East, which for those of you guys playing at home, somehow 10 teams in this conference get into the playoffs this year. So right now, this is a live Sunday evening look. L'Impact du Montreal are in 9th with 23 points. The Chicago Dumpster Fire are in 10th with 22, and those are the teams above the red line. Atlanta United are in 11th, also on 22 points, but they lose out here.
Wait, who's
I
in 10th?
actually think this is incorrect.
Yeah,
I'm now looking at this. My understanding was that the first
Atlanta should be at 22.
I'm sorry. Atlanta and Chicago are both on 22.
Yeah.
Chicago are above them on points per game because they have the game in hand.
Yeah.
That's why.
Which is why I don't know that if they don't play against Minnesota, I don't think that's helpful to us.
Well, we can do some difficult math here in a second.
Well, then you're just dividing by a lower number, and I don't need to know what those numbers are to say that when you're dividing by a lower number, you're going to get a higher result.
Well, Chicago only have 5 wins on the season, and so do we. So if that game doesn't happen and Chicago loses and we win, we should, in theory, have more points per game. In theory. I don't know. This is really hard this year, guys, because normally this points per game nonsense is not part of the equation because everybody's playing all the games. But to continue down the lineup real quick, so below the red line, we've got somehow Atlanta United are back on top of DC. They're at 22, and then at 21 is Inter Miami Club de Football and DC United, both on 21. So that's Miami and DC at 0.955 points per game. Atlanta's got 1.0 points per game, and none of those teams have a game in hand. They've all played 22. They'll play again on decision day.
It's just Chicago.
So the tiebreaker order, again, for those of you guys playing at home, the first tiebreaker, it's not really the tiebreaker. This is just how we're doing it this year. Points per game is what determines the place. And then after that, I always forget this, but the first tiebreaker in MLS is wins, which, man, had DC United won tonight, they would have been sitting pretty. But they actually have the fewest wins here. They're tied with Chicago on 5 wins. Both Miami and Atlanta have 6, and Montreal have 7. So not great for DC United, and the news gets worse because goal differential is the second tiebreaker, and we're at minus
15 right now, right?
Yeah,
shocking.
Couple of the final 2 games in the Olsen tenure did not help the goal differential story, and then after that it's goals for as the final tiebreaker, which I don't think we'll get into. But we're sitting on 23, and the only team in worse shape than us is Atlanta with 22. We're tied with Miami at 23. So,
well, for us to have to overcome the goal differential if we're scoring 15 times,
it ain't happening. So here,
I think we don't actually only need to score 4. I think one of the teams we're competing with is like minus 10, and they're the next fewest.
Yeah, Miami's at minus 11, and so are Montreal.
Yeah.
And the best part about Montreal is we play them. But here's the thing with Montreal. They're 2 points ahead of us. If we beat them, we go above them. That's it. They're done and dusted. So that's the easy way for DC United to stay alive, and it's actually the only way for them to stay alive. They've got to beat Montreal.
Right?
Oh yeah,
it's
not that simple. The midweek.
Buckle up, friends.
Right?
We're just getting into it.
So Wednesday night, it's a crazy week. Sam, tomorrow you and I have Leeds Leicester.
Will we be coming at you next weekend, or
we'll
will
see.
John and I not be friends anymore? TBD.
It could go either way. My Giants play tomorrow night. I guess I'll still watch them. Tuesday night's election night, so that'll be interesting no matter where you stand.
Yeah.
And then Wednesday night, of course, is in theory the game in hand for Chicago against Minnesota. And I don't know if I'm a betting man. I don't know if I even think the game's going to happen. So
we're crossing our fingers it does, but also I think it was Joshua who pointed out, it might have been John, that Minnesota minus like 7 of their starters to COVID is also not the game that Chicago is gonna lose probably. So we'll see.
So our friends at Black and Red United did a quick breakdown here, and I think they're almost 100% spot on. I might have come up with a slightly different iteration with the Chicago piece, but bottom line is, as we said, DC United obviously have got to beat Montreal. There's no way through with a draw. There's no way through with a loss. They've got to beat Montreal next weekend. And, I mean, we've been here before this season with a must-win game against Montreal, right?
Poetic justice. It's our turn, though.
Hopefully. We need Columbus to beat Atlanta. Right, which is doable. Columbus is a much better team than Atlanta. I mean, I'm still a little surprised we kept a clean sheet against them, and they're getting healthier.
It's
so
one
that's
of the 70.
Right, that's doable. And then Cincinnati has to at least get a result on the road against Miami. So I'm not feeling as good about that one, let's be honest. But
Miami's also a little bit of a dumpster. They're like a little bit on the downward turn right now, so maybe that could go in our favor.
Yeah, and so really breaking this down, the Chicago situation, if they could take 0 points through these 2 games, that would be the most ideal.
Yeah.
If they get 1 point and both games are played, we're still okay. If they
1 point total.
Correct.
In both games, yes.
Correct. And both games are played in that scenario. Yep. And then if they get a point each and we win, I think my head explodes. I think if they draw both games,
I think we're still good,
above
right?
them.
Yeah.
Because the first tiebreaker would be wins. And this, guys, I apologize. We're doing a lot live here.
Everyone has stopped listening.
Yeah, right. But no, in that scenario, we'd both be at 24, and we would have 6 wins. Chicago would only have 5, so we'd be above them. So it would really just come down to what happens with Atlanta and Miami, because Atlanta's winning in basically.
Yeah.
Well, not quite. Winning, helping in.
More so than us, I think.
Yeah, and Miami's in the pretty undesirable
they also
spot
have
like we are.
I mean, yeah, but Atlanta has a more difficult opponent. We're all really pulling for Cincy, which is weird to say.
We're in trouble.
It's not hopeless. I'd rather be in this situation than be Cincy right now, who's sitting at the bottom.
That's true.
There's not enough straws in the world for the ones you guys are grasping for right now.
They're all metal. We can just keep making them. They're reusable.
Right.
You don't need new straws to grasp at.
So we've been talking for a while. We've been trying to keep our hopes alive, and we're trying to rationalize tonight's loss, which hurts quite a bit. But we know you have thoughts. We appreciate everything we've seen in the YouTube chat so far. But if you want to join the show, give us a call at 202-892-6328. That's 202-892-6328. And of course, if you don't want your actual voice to be heard, you can text us and we can read your thoughts as well. You don't have to call, but we like it when you call. And
I don't know, the opportunity to have you narrate my thoughts, I might text into the text line.
You really want that?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Oh man,
come up with something very fun for you to say.
Oh, no. We are live.
Doesn't mean we'll read everything.
Why does this team miss Lucha the most?
Oh God.
No. I like what I saw at Edison Flores tonight. Lucha's gone now.
Eddie.
Yeah, I mean, Flores for sure is becoming just more and more exciting.
Look,
which I like to see.
Guys, you just spent like half the show breaking down playoff properties. I don't know. I'm fine with this. I'm at peace with how the season has ended for DC United. You know, there's some wins, a winning streak, a tough loss to the Revs. Whatever happens in the next game will happen. I'm just happy that we have taken steps forward. You know, I'm just trying to.
I want all our listeners to receive a beer from you, though.
Yeah, right. That's really what I'm here for. But so here's a question though, and we've stayed away from the coaching search a little bit tonight. Not intentionally. It's just been a lot of other stuff to talk about. But if DC United don't make the playoffs next week, they came damn close after they were not set up for success for most of the season. Chad Ashton in the final round of interviews.
Apparently he is.
Yeah, we saw that rumor earlier today that it sounds like he will definitely be in. But
can you reiterate the entire rumor? Because I don't recall.
The rumor is that Chad Ashton is among finalists.
I thought it listed the other finalists, though, right?
John Harkes is probably not among the finalists, as well as who was the other name?
Other people we didn't want.
Chris Armas was amongst finalists. Yeah. I think Jill Ellis is still
was among finalists.
The assistant for Columbus. Ezra, I think is his first name. I can't remember.
Yeah, hold on. We'll pull it up. Who's the guy who has been with like every team in the league, and we're like, please don't hire him?
Dom. Is that who you're talking
Who's
about?
That?
Dom. Kinnear. Dom Kinnear.
Yeah.
But he's currently the interim head coach for the LA Galaxy. So I don't know if that's putting an end to his coaching pursuits. I would just want to say congrats to John Harkes for winning USL League One.
Yeah, winning is
DC
stretch,
United, former great, won the league. like the Supporter Shield, and then the final was canceled due to COVID. I think they won by default because the other team could not play.
They were first the whole season, so I feel a little better about that.
I think
but
that's what it was. They had agreed prior to postseason that whoever had the most points going into it would win.
Mark's got a last name for it. It's Ezra Hendrickson,
That's
who
right.
played for DC United in 2004. It wasn't a ton of games.
Yeah, Columbus Crew assistant currently.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
And yeah, thanks, Mark. And I've got the tweet from Goff here. DC United interim head coach, as we said, Chad Ashton, expected to be on the final list. Joe Ellis, Chris Armas, and others in MLS circles and some international coaches remain in the mix. But the good news is we're not expecting Jason Kreis, was who I was thinking of, to be in the list of finalists.
Yeah,
Thank God.
Oh, man.
I'd like to think that I probably could beat him out in an interview to coach this team. And of course, I don't know. I was really tough on Harks when we first talked about head coaching candidates, but like, dang, I'm now like a little bit frustrated to hear he's not even in the list of finalists.
John just doesn't like being happy.
The reasons you brought up are probably the reasons he's not mentioned for finalists. The experience at a lower level is great. The fact that he's won at a lower level is great. Maybe we bring him into the Loudon and maybe we bring him in the Loudon and give Chad 1 year at the Reign. I don't know. I want to see DC United take some real ambition here. I'm glad Jason Kreis is out because he is. All respect to the RSL days back in like 2009. That was great. But since he's been garbage fire for what? NYCFC and Orlando, I think is what.
And I think, I know I'm going to cop out, but I just think it depends upon like what ownership it's going to do, right? And like what the GM situation is like. I'd either like to see like Chad get a real shot at it and not just be like a year-long interim head coach in name, but interim and everything else. Like, I'd rather see him actually take the reins and get an actual shot and be able to do with this team what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Or I'd love to see like a clean sweep and just like bring someone brand new in who's gonna just usher in a new era of DC United. And honestly, if either option were given like the full power of what they want to do, obviously, you know, there are like always limitations. You're not gonna sign every player you want, but if both options were able to really put their mark on DC United to the fullest extent that is realistic, I'd be fine with it. But just saying like Chad's gonna have a year and then we're gonna bring in Harks and it's gonna be a little bit of the same, or like we're gonna bring in a new coach who's not Chad, but like they're gonna just have to work within the confines of what DC United's doing right now, and they're not really gonna be able to put their mark on it. Like
that's what we did to Ben for 10 years. So I don't
absolutely,
know.
and that's why I don't want to see the same though. Like we saw what happened for 10 years, right? So I'd love to see just a completely new era of DC United.
That's what worries me the most, I think. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, and I'm not convinced things are going to change.
I don't think the list. Sorry, I thought you were done speaking.
No. I was just gonna say like I'm not convinced that ownership's all of a sudden gonna like pour in all these new resources. I don't think it happens.
I also think the list that we have, like even just like Jill Ellis specifically, like why would you take the job if you're not being told otherwise? Why would Jill look at this team?
I don't think she takes the job if she's offered it, personally.
Well, I mean, she also doesn't have to take interviews, and she is, right?
She had an informal interview with the team.
Yeah, she could have just looked at it and said no, but the fact that like something was said to her to put her in like these quote unquote final talks, obviously we don't know the exact details of that, but just the fact that these coaches with, you know, moderate ability and, you know, can prove themselves in MLS, the fact that they're all still around makes me think that something is being said to them.
It could be a factor. John Harks could have said no to the overnight security shifts, and that's probably why he's on the finalist list.
Is that what you just read in the comments?
Yeah,
someone made a
we'll
joke about it. But yeah, I don't think you can. You're right. We can't expect this ownership.
No,
they're doing stuff like this still.
I'm really glad. Thank you, Mark, for bringing that up. I mean,
so we can throw our table up.
Just completely unacceptable.
Yeah,
it's embarrassing
on all levels.
Yeah.
That anyone, let alone multiple people and enough to make it a thing, thought that was okay. And if you missed the story this week, Pablo Maurer broke it in The Athletic that DC United fired their security company, which was somehow costing them $100,000 a month. So I'm on board with that part.
I'm not as surprised about that part, because to me, and maybe I misread it in the article, but that to me included game day staff, which is obviously significantly more, but also, as we learned in the article, and as just you should probably know, that the stadium needs 24-hour surveillance. So paying for that 24-hour surveillance, the night shifts are obviously more expensive. The fact that something in DC of that nature costs $100,000 is unfortunate, and like it's sad to see on paper, because you're like, That could be spent on so many players, but the reality of it is that's probably on par.
Right? I mean,
yes.
that's a player.
I don't know that is the fault of the ownership, though. I think that's just the nature of what needed to happen.
But what is the fault of the ownership
yes.
is asking, not asking, but basically telling your front office staff that they will volunteer for these shifts,
or else.
Basically, or else. And they did come back and say, like, hey, that initial email that was leaked was maybe a little bit over the top, but what's 100% over the top is the decision you made to throw random front office workers in the security booth. That's not even minor league. That's little league. Like, you can't. Those types of things are that's what worries me about. Let's say they bring in a Jill Ellis or they bring in an international coach that we're all really excited about. I don't think we're going to splash the cash to really, do the rest of it right. And I've sat here and argued all year, I'll own it, that this roster is much better than they're playing because they're so hurt. But I just, why do we continue to cut corners? And the point that I made on Twitter when this news broke is like, I just want this team to do everything the right way. And if that means we have to do we have to cut a lot of the things that we do because we don't have the resources and the time and the people to do it the right way, then fine. But they have to start doing everything the right way, or we're never going to get to where we want to be.
Yeah,
and this is not the right way.
Yeah, it's really getting old just hearing about DC United not doing things the right way. I mean, we've all experienced what this team has come from and where they're at now, and it was supposed to be so great and it was supposed to be so good, but we keep finding out bad things about the team, which is not great.
And I think it's interconnected too, right? I think that's what separates some of the teams, especially when you talk about like the expansion teams, thinking about LAFC and Seattle a little while ago, but even Atlanta, they're coming in and they're from the get-go doing everything right. And I think it's not possible to just do things right on the field and do things poorly behind the scenes. I don't think those things connect very well. And just when you have the mentality of doing things a certain way off the table, like we're behind the scenes, that bleeds into what you're doing in the spotlight, right? So, I mean, you're right that it's a mentality thing. And I don't think that's breaking news to anyone who's a DC United fan. I think the details that come out are shocking and unacceptable, but I think that overall, like, to hear that something like this is happening, it's unfortunate, but you're like, I mean, probably. Like, because you see all the things that are happening on the field.
What's sad to me is I wasn't so much surprised to read it. It's just, like, again, disappointed of, like, how is this my club?
No idea.
It's frustrating. But, Joshua, I want to go back to one of the things you said, about John Harkes. I think, we often talk about using Loudon as an opportunity for players and coaches, but I don't think that there's an opening at Loudon right now. I mean, I think Ryan Martin did a great job this season, and it's just a totally jacked year, and they unfortunately Loudon couldn't even draw on any of the players from DC that would typically be like trying to get some minutes and really bolstering that team. Because of COVID, they weren't really transferring players much at all. I don't know. I guess I don't see any reason to get rid of Ryan Martin at this point.
And I think that's
I don't necessarily know that you were suggesting that he should have, but
no, it wasn't about getting rid of Ryan Martin or necessarily giving Chad Ashton such a short lease. It's more about grooming John Harkes, because I do think he would like to come back to DC. He's only in South Carolina because that's where his daughters go to college, really.
Okay.
But he's a young, promising coach in the U.S., and he has obvious ties to DC. I think our GMs should be talking to him pretty regularly.
I'd rather see him come in as an assistant coach. And I don't know if that's like an insulting suggestion, but when you're talking about doing the little things right, if you're going to push aside a coach who's been doing perfectly fine to just like bring in John Harkes just to like see what would happen. And again, I know that's not what you were saying.
That's what we're going to do with the hire, right? We're going to bring in unless you think it is Chad.
That's very different. Because there's a difference, because right now that you're hiring for a head coach and it's a spot that's up for everybody, right? They didn't just hand it to Chad Ashton. It's very different when Ryan Martin has no reason to believe his job is insecure, and to just say like, well, we have this opportunity and we're just going to push you aside like that. for future coaches does not make them want to come up within DC United. If they think that they're just going to be shoved aside for a DC United legend later on, like, I would much rather go towards a different team to pursue.
No, I disagree. I think coaches,
that was like kind of
coaches have to live that way. Coaches move every couple of years. It's cutthroat there. I think, you can be replaced.
But Brian Martin has done great things with Loudon, and I don't
has
see
he
that
done great things. They had like 2 wins this year, and I know they didn't have DC United to pull off, and they haven't really fully funded. But the coach that we had last time for Loudon is now an assistant in MLS.
Well, hold on. Richie Williams quit because his boy Bruce Arena got
he had a better opportunity,
an easy job in New England.
You're
Richie
right,
Williams
but it's different
gave
for
up
like
on that
him
team.
leaving, and just like casting a coach
It
aside
would be a
because you're like, this
promotion.
is a flashy name for us.
It
that we're
would
just
be a
gonna bring
promotion
in.
for Harks. But
no, it would be a promotion for Martin too. If he comes
To
on
be
as
the
the
assistant
assistant
coach of
for
Loudon?
DC United,
Oh, okay.
I think you could do that. I think you could do that, and it would make sense for everyone.
That's not what I thought you were arguing.
Yeah, well, and I think the other thing though is, Ryan Martin did come in the middle of last season. In fact, he came into Loudon before Segra Field even opened, and he had Loudon almost in a playoff push last year. This season, everybody gets a mulligan except Ben Olsen apparently this season.
This season also, like, we took everybody, right? It's not even just about relying on your senior team to be sending some of the young kids down. Like, we actively took the young kids and we're like, because we know that they're not going to be able to shift back and forth, we're bringing them up just in case.
Yeah.
And that ended up being a phenomenal decision because we absolutely have used every single one of them. But it's not even like, oh, we weren't able to send some kids down. It's like, no, you took all the star players I was relying on, and now I have to make do with what's left.
I'm just saying, I don't think we have a good index of who Ryan Martin is as a coach, because I don't think Loudon have ever been fully funded as a roster. I mean, I remember talking to Richie Williams like 9 days before the season started, and he had maybe less than that players. He might have had 6.
Yeah, I remember that too, right? And that was tough because, well, I think there were people that didn't even think that team was going to get off the ground last season.
I mean, they asked to pause the season, right? Didn't we ask for this to be our first season, and they said no?
And what's interesting though is with rumors, not rumors, with the MLS development league coming back, there's already a couple teams that have said, yep, we're out. We're gonna go do that. We're out of the USL, and it could very much be because of the legalese surrounding how they got Segra Field and all that stuff. But Loudon are not one of those teams that's going to drop to League One or to drop to the MLS development league. Like, they're staying in the championship, and so at some point, the funding or something has got to come because the path Loudon are on right now. You can't be bottom of. You can't be bottom of the league every year forever.
It'll be bad.
Like, it's gonna, But I will say they landed Matud on Mustafa, and he's gotten some trials with the big black and red. I don't know.
He's good. It's such a big jump still.
Yeah, it is.
But we've seen players do it. I talked about Kay and Blessing. We talked about this. The new coach at DC United probably needs to be able to get the best out of the lower side of the roster. That's been so huge. I think that's what Bob Bradley did with LAFC.
Takes a special type of coach, though.
You have to be a coach, like an actual like coach and mentor,
and not a manager.
You have to make players better, and to have Loudon fully stood up and have all the training facilities, have all these kids coming through. I think that's the direction DC United should be going. Someone who can make players better.
I think that Olsen could have gotten there had he not been thrown right into DC United as well.
Oh, you're talking like several years ago at the beginning.
I'm talking like
time.
Literally 10 years ago. Yeah. If Loudon had been a thing then and we had said go to Loudon first, I think he would have developed as a coach and then maybe been able to grow into a manager. But I think, and I don't know if everyone is wanting to hear my Olsen sympathies right now. It's probably not the time. I just think that we saw sparks of him being able to like work with those young kids. And maybe his tactics were who he was as a player and he couldn't adapt, right? But I also think he was never like given the opportunity to learn how to do that.
Well, he's definitely got a role with the team. They're still trying to figure out what that is, but I think news kind of leaked this week. He might be the head of security moving forward.
Oh,
in the in the front office. Richard asked a question related. Should MLS force United's ownership to sell if they're not going to dedicate resources to the team?
Can you do that first?
Yeah. A single entity, we've seen it in basketball, and we've seen it not really. Well,
I don't think we've seen it in MLS, really.
I think the closest thing we've seen was the Crew.
Yeah.
Crew being
kind of debacle, and that's.
I think the league had a part in San Jose moving to Houston, and then a new San Jose being stood up.
What I would say is, as frustrated as we are as fans because we know that we're not getting everything we should be getting into this roster, I think Levian would make a pretty easy case to say, like, look, we built a new stadium in one of the most expensive cities in the world in one of the fastest growing neighborhoods within it. We built a USL championship team. We built a second stadium for them. We're, in theory, building a training complex. I don't know. Apparently that's like ground to a halt. But investment is there. I think we're just all frustrated that it's not to the level we'd like to see on the field. And then just all the little things that continue to pop up, and you're just like, what? That's where we're frustrated. So I don't know. I guess my thought on this question is, boy, it would be a stretch. That would be a stretch.
I think we probably have better funding than maybe half the league. We have 2 DPs right now. We have a U.S. men's national team starter and a Peruvian national team starter. And then we have a bunch of internationals outside of that. I don't think this team is I get upset just as much because I think this team could be doing so much better. And I think the reach in the neighborhood would be so much better. And I think we should be the little things should be gone immediately. All these little press releases, like the front office being fired, the team taking PPP, all that should not be happening. But I think, as far as the league, we're definitely investing more than Cincy has been, than San Jose has been, than Houston has. Like, it's not that bad. On the field, it's been pretty dire recently, but the ownership has been trying, I think.
And I'm going to say that I hope that this is the upswing, right? Like, all of the issues that we've talked about really all season are not ones that can just be fixed overnight. So hopefully, and like I just said, they all kind of feed into each other. So I hope that this is the upswing and we start to see things differently, both on and off the field. And I've said it before, but I mean, talk to your ticket rep, right? Like, talk about these things on Twitter, really make it known that these are the things that you are demanding from your team, because we're all customers, right? And if we're not happy with the product, we need to be letting them know. And if we want the product to be more than just winning on the field, we need to let them know.
Well, and that's as good of a transition out as we can get, Sam, because winning on the field is what this team's got to do next weekend. That's the end of the road. Without a win and some help, DC United take on Montreal here at home next Sunday, and it's a wild 3:30 kickoff, if I recall correctly.
There was one today that was started off at 3:30.
Yeah, and I think that's
national.
No, I think that's the decision day situation. But yeah, 3:30. Is the kickoff. No, it does not appear that we have been. We could be. I guess this could be one of those weeks where they're making those decisions at the end.
The 3:30 today was on ABC. Which,
yeah.
Oh man, DC United probably should not be on ABC right now.
No, it looks like just scrolling through ahead here. Yeah, every game next weekend is at 3. No, that's not true. The Western Conference kickoffs are at 6:30.
It should be all Eastern, all
yeah,
Western,
okay,
right?
so that's right. They're doing Eastern
True
Conference
decision day fashion
at 3:30, and it doesn't look like a game's been selected as of us talking right now. So I don't know. We'll play a quick game. If you're the big media companies, right? You got Orlando City, Nashville. Both those teams have clinched. You've got Chicago, NYCFC. I don't know. Do they get to wait until the result of that game midweek? But NYCFC's in, Chicago's on the fringe.
NYCFC just also had a really big game. So if you're just looking for goals scored, right?
Red Bulls Toronto, potentially Supporter Shield.
Yeah,
right. That could be one. Miami, Cincinnati. Miami's got a lot of firepower right now. Cincinnati's out.
You're not doing
DC United Montreal is the only game with 2 potential playoff teams playing. Now I think there's a scenario where they draw and neither team makes it. But and then Columbus, Atlanta. Obviously, Columbus is already in. and then Philly, New England. Both those teams are already in. So
I feel like it's going to be the Toronto game.
It's going to be Toronto or Columbus for the Supporters Shield, I think. I think Columbus is still within a shot. Atlanta gets a pretty big market pull because I think they're away for that game, but they have the big fan base. But we will be tuned into DC United for sure, and I can't wait. I have no hopes or aspirations, but I hope they just finish off the year on a positive note.
Every aspiration, and I'm giving my entire full heart to DC United and just asking if they don't crack it.
Oh man.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We've gotten some feedback from listeners that there could be some interest in doing kind of a live watch. So we're gonna see if we can pull something off like that.
Clear, we don't have the rights to broadcast the game. I just want to be crystal clear about that. We're not trying to break any laws.
If it plays out the way that I picture it in my head, it will look very much like your screen looks right now, with potentially some graphics on the side with live scores, and we'll just kind of have mics on and games on and be talking through it. But yeah, we fair play to Sam there. Unfortunately, we do not. We're not that big yet. We don't have the rights to retransmit games.
But I love it. I love that there's the interest. If you're interested, please let us know. If you're like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, please also let us know, right? But I
take negative criticism. We give enough of it, right?
I just love like the comments that come in on Twitter, and I'm even the one who reads them, right? But they're so great, and I love interacting with you all in that way. So thinking about like watching a game together in this crazy way is the only way possible. I love it.
Yeah, make sure you bring some beers, and hopefully it could potentially be the last time we see the black and red this year.
It'll be the last time.
It is the last time we will ever see that ugly white kit. Could be to happen
let's
today.
Hope so. It's so bad.
I doubt DC United are home all the way through the playoffs, so that they make that. We could see a reappearance.
I'm most mad at the shorts.
Yeah, silver shorts are crap.
Get a new design.
Silver? That's very generous.
Yeah, gray, charcoal.
Gray. Accidentally washed with a black sock.
I think
shorts.
That's it.
Yeah.
Before we wrap, we'll give a shout out to our friends at Across the Pond. And if you want to see Sam and I in the flesh, we'll probably be there tomorrow watching Leeds Leicester at around 3 o'clock.
Possibly for the Giants, depending on how much you're drinking.
Yeah, I don't know. Are we allowed to give a shout out at who might be joining us?
Probably not. We'll talk about it like next week.
Surprise guest.
Sam might have a special date, and you could see it in person at Across the Pond. But if you don't want to come tomorrow, you can always hit up our friends at Across the Pond using the promo code podcast for 5% off your order, whether that's in person or to go. So we appreciate the support they've given us this year.
And the Leeds Leicester game is on at 3 tomorrow, which is also when their happy hour starts. So
sure is.
Opening just for that.
I'll be working. Like
hopefully it's happy
American.
for one of us. Hopefully it's me.
No, it's definitely going to be me.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. One of the craziest games this season, but DC United go into decision day with a chance to make the playoffs, and I got to be honest, I think that's all we could ask for a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we'll do it again next weekend right here on Tried and True, the DC United Postgame podcast presented by Heineken.